I'm going to be doing a little bit of live coding. I've not done live coding before, so please bear with me when I kind of run into things. We have a few people around. There's Tim, fantastic CEO/assistant for the day. Nathan, designer. Tom at the back, we do some photos, and Misha, who will be here shortly as well later. So if you're stuck with anything, either raise your hand, one of them will come over, or if you've got any questions, we'll either answer them as we go or at the end as well. This workshop, we've kind of built it as a, you can follow along what we're doing. I want you to be on your laptops building it as well, getting experience, trying things out, see what works for you, what doesn't. We've got a workshop, so you can follow along if you find that easier, but I'm here to kind of guide you through it. Okay, cool. So let us get started, and I'm going to run over to here. Oops. I'm going to close this because we don't need that one for the moment. And we're going to get started. So first of all, if you want to do things by yourself on your own pace, you can go to this link at the bottom, ethworkshop.eth.limo, and you'll see exactly the same thing that we're working on today. So I'm going to head over there now. So to get started, for those of you who don't yet have a Mailchain account, it's actually to create an account. I would say if you do have one, it's probably still a really good idea to create a new one anyway. We're going to be using your secret recovery phrase, which is a really important piece of information that you don't want to be sharing anyway, and we've got to get that into your environment inside your computer. So I'm going to just sort of create that account now, and you can follow along, and I'll explain a little bit about what we've done and how we've done things as well, so you can get an idea. So we don't need that. Instead, we're going to head over to the main application, so app.mailchain.com. And if you go to the register page, you'll see what looks like a very, very familiar user interface for registering and creating user accounts. So in this, what I would suggest you do is come up with a username and just add something like, I don't know, -MC-workshop, so that you can see that this is available for you. And you can use it for the workshop, you can use it for any other coding experiments, and you're not having to use your main account and filling it up with messages for testing purposes. So let me head over here, and I've got my username ready, so I'm just going to pop in Rob. For a password, I'm going to create myself a nice, very strong password. Wow, I can't type and talk long passwords, so if you can bear with me. So there's a couple of buttons to click and accept. I'm going to prove that I am a human by apparently identifying some soccer balls, which is great. Before I click continue, though, I'm going to do a couple of things. So inside of here, I'm just going to bring your attention to this is the secret recovery phrase. So now I've shown it on the phrase. It is not a secret recovery phrase anymore. Showing it on the screen, sorry. I can generate new ones, and that's done securely on your client end. So I'm going to kind of hide that and generate myself a couple of new ones so you can't see what's going on. Now, for those of you that are familiar with Web3, I've just typed in username and password. That's probably setting some of your tingly senses off as that doesn't sound like a safe thing to do. And in many respects, the traditional way that this is built with OAuth does present some problems. What we mean by that, for us, it doesn't hit our bar or level of security. At Mailchain, we've built a truly end-to-end encrypted security platform where only you and the sender and the recipient ever knows about the contents of the messages. To achieve that, we need a secret that only the client knows, and all the processing happens on the client, whether that is inside the browser, the mobile application, or on a server that you're running through the SDK, or any client that you're building through the SDK. So we've built a username and password entry system using the opaque protocol. What that allows us to do is presents a very familiar interface for users. They register with username and password. However, that password, unlike in OAuth, is never sent to us. It never leaves the user's machine. Instead, there's a series of handshakes and key exchanges between the client and us, and at the result, at the end of it, there's a shared session and a secret that only the client knows. With this secret, they can then control their secret recovery phrase, do authentication, and authenticate requests backwards and forwards. So suffice to say, it is a safe way of being able to communicate, and it's something that we're really, really happy with, and we hope that we've bridged the kind of the user interface and the security for users and for us as well. So I'm going to just add sort of Mailchain, dash workshop here, so that Rob is already taken. That's my normal one. So I'm going to create a new account for this workshop. So it's asking me to identify I'm human again because I've changed something. So I'm going to select all the watches very quickly. Hopefully that is correct. And I'm going to log myself in. Now, I'm going to download the secret recovery phrase, and I do encourage you to do that because it's going to make things easier. If you click skip for any reason, it's okay. You can grab it from the user interface through the session settings page, and someone can kind of walk you through that. And also, do save your password inside a password manager of your choice. So I'm going to download that there, which is great. Okay, so it's a mail interface. It should look pretty familiar to anyone that's used mail. So that should be everyone here. You got inbox, sent, archive, etc. And I can compose mails. But we're not going to spend very much time inside the user interface. Instead, we're going to be spending the majority of our time inside the code and kind of checking the user interface to see how things go. So also make sure that you have MetaMask installed. I've already got that installed, and I expect many of you have already, so I'm not going to kind of run through that as well. And for this, I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code and Node.js for all the examples. So let's kind of get started, and we're going to step into the first exercise. And that is where we're going to be using a Mailchain account to send a message. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just head over to my terminal window. I'm going to figure out where I am. Great, I'm here. I'm going to make myself a directory for this Mailchain workshop. I'm going to try and do less spelling mistakes. And I'm going to head over to there. I'm going to initialize a Git repository. Makes life easier for me. What I'm going to do here is actually get a git ignore on this here. Oh yeah, sorry, that's going to be tiny for everyone, isn't it? Thank you very much, Tim. So what I've done there, I've just created a directory. I've just gone inside of it, and I've run git init to initialize myself a GitHub repository. So now I'm going to be grabbing a git ignore from GitHub so that I can have things set up nicely and securely, and it'll kind of all make sense when we talk about environment variables a little bit later on. So I'm just going to grab a curl command for that, and you can see it in the instruction steps. I'm going to open up myself my code editor. So we're going to spend most of the time inside of here. Great. So here we are, and I'm going to just commit the git ignore as well. So that's done. Brilliant. So to start things off, we're going to create ourselves a server. Actually, I should run through what we're going to be doing here. Let me pause myself a second. So we're going to be creating a server that allows you to get started with the SDK, sending a message, and we're going to see it then inside the user interface, so we get a feel of how things work. So we're going to set ourselves up a local node server. I'm just going to create myself an NPM package. I'm going to accept all of the defaults because the defaults are brilliant for this purposes. So once we've done that, to make things easier for passing in secrets, or more securely for passing in secrets, we're going to be using environment variables. Environment variables are suitable for your local machine, and if you're using environment variables in production environments, there's quite a lot of tools to help you manage that. But for now, we're just going to be focusing on what we're going to do in a local machine to make sure that we store our secret recovery phrase safely, and we don't copy it somewhere that we really shouldn't be copying it. I'm also going to just adjust the screen slightly so you can see the bottom here of the console window, because that's going to be important. Okay, fantastic. So once we've got all that set up, and before we do that, let's install our SDK. So we have created an SDK because although we have a API that you can communicate directly with, it is difficult to communicate with the API. The reason I say it's difficult is because you need to authenticate from the client side rather than the server side, so the client authenticates and communicates with the server. You need to verify all the responses and decrypt the responses, and you need to encrypt and sign everything you send. So the SDK kind of does all this for you. So it just kind of like removes all that complexity and makes it very, very easy for you to be able to use, to be able to send and eventually receive messages as well. So while that's installing, we're going to now set up ourselves our .env file. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a .env file, and we're going to just call it env, so .env, so touch.env, and that's going to create a file here. So I'm going to add into here my secret recovery phrase. I'm going to do it in a way that means that I'm not revealing it to everybody on the stage. So that should pop that inside my environment file, and we'll find out if it has a little bit later on. Cool. So now inside the server.js, I'm going to set this up so that we can sort of figure out if my client has actually authenticated correctly, aka have I set up my environment file correctly. So I'm going to just require .env. So we have this all good. Then I'm going to import the Mailchain SDK. I'm sorry. Mailchain, no. Great. So now that's imported, what I'm going to do is get my secret recovery phrase into here. And that's grabbing it from the environment file. So once I've done that, I'm going to instantiate the SDK. And there's a few different ways to do this, but because we're using the secret recovery phrase, that is the one I'm going to be opting for. And now I've got a Mailchain SDK available already. We need to use an asynchronous function so that we can be able to call the various different methods. So I'm just going to create that and have this available to us. Great. So now what I'm going to do is probably the easiest way to check if I've authenticated correctly is get the local user and see what comes back out. So if I have entered my secret recovery phrase correctly, this will work. So let's give it a try and take a look. So I'm going to run npm start and see what comes out. Oh, I've not installed .env, so that's going to be something that I'm going to add now. Great. Here we go. So that is my username. So now I have authenticated, I'm inside, and we can start working. And now we can start sending the first message. So to send a message, it's pretty straightforward. We just need to compose the message body. The SDK takes care of everything else for us. So what I'm going to do, now we've got our user logged in here, I'm going to just set this up. So to send a message, we need to fill out the details. As you can imagine, we follow in a mail pattern, so we need to have who it is sent from, who it is sent to, and some information about the body. So what I'm going to do is, I'm actually just going to send it from the user that I have here. So from myself, and a very simple test case is I'm going to send it to myself. If you note here that the to is an array, you can send to many people, just like you would expect in normal email. So I'm going to get myself hello world, yeah, from Mailchain. That sounds great. I'm going to get myself some content. And here, it's worth noting that we require that you put HTML as well, because the browser or the client will display everything in HTML, which is which is very nice because you can format emails or format messages into whichever way that you want to. Oh dear, what have I popped open here? Okay. So once that is done, I just need to close my function properly. And now we can take a look to see whether that is worked correctly. So I'm going to just console log out the result. This is a good way to just to confirm everything is done correctly. And I'm going to run npm start again. So assuming everything has worked, we will see a response come down from here. And what this is doing, it is looking at it's using the secret recovery phrase. We have a quite complex key chain, which allows us to pick the relevant keys for the messaging and the encryption in the inbox, and it is proposing and creating that message. If we pop over to the UI, so if you've got your account open, this is going to be a useful button for today. If you just refresh your inbox, you'll now see the new message that we popped inside of there. So simple as that. And that's kind of how we start. And essentially that piece of functionality is going to run all the way through. But what we're going to do now is layer on some more interesting use cases and interesting abilities to be able to address people. So let's start addressing or sending messages from an Ethereum account. What I'm going to do for that is I suggest, to make things nice and safe and secure, is we create a test account and pop it into your MetaMask so that we're just using this for the purpose of the workshop. My preferred way of creating a test development only account is just to run this command here, OpenSSL, get myself a random string and I pop it in there. Clearly this is not a secure account anymore because everyone's just seen what's gone on there. So to do that inside of MetaMask, you just open it, you click on this icon at the top, go import account and paste it inside. Now, for the purposes of today, I'm not actually going to confirm this particular one. I'll explain why a little bit later on. But suffice to say, I do have myself an address inside of here. I've called it 01 Workshop. I suggest when you add your address to here, also give it a name. It's going to make things a little bit easier to keep track of. You can do that by changing it inside the account details. So now, to add addresses or wallet addresses inside of Mailchain, you click on the register your wallet. It'll pop up. It'll give you a few options of different wallets that we support. Obviously, we're adding more over time. And if there's any that you particularly want, do let us know. When you click connect, it'll allow you to pick which wallet you want to. I'm going to select the one that I previously added, and I'm going to confirm this. It's going to guide me through what's happening, so the wallet is now connected. What we want to do is we never want to have access to your private key for sending transactions, and instead we want you to be able to use a separate messaging key for communication. So in this verify address step, that is what we're doing here. So this message, which has been formatted quite strangely inside of MetaMask, is us explaining what we're doing. The key things to be aware of is this is the address that you're about to sign with, or I'm about to sign with. This is the messaging key that's going to be used, that's generated by the keyring. This is the public key. All this information will be public and will be made available to anyone that wants to know. And this is a nonce so that we can just keep an idea of the tracking of the order. Now that you sign this, there's a couple of other things that happen. It's going to go look to see if I've associated any ENS, free name, unstoppable, other sort of visual names, even Coinbase as well. And again, we're kind of adding more and more. You can give it a label as well if you want to see it in your inbox anyway. But for the moment, I'm just going to stick with the defaults, and I'm going to skip this particular step for now. So when we hit done, what you'll notice here, hopefully, is there's another mailbox. And this is the mailbox that I have just gone and added. So once that is done, we can now start messaging from this address. So I'm going to go grab the address. So I'm just going to copy it from here. I'm going to head over to my example. And instead of the from, I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to change it. So I put the Ethereum address that we just had. I'm going to type ethereum.mailchain.com. So what is now going to happen is it's going to allow us to use this address that I've now registered and send a message from it. if you want to experiment, and I do encourage you to experiment, throw a different address in there that you haven't registered, and it will not work because it will not be able to find the correct keys. So I'm just going to change this a little bit different. So I'm going to put hello from my Ethereum wallet. I'm going to put that here as well, just so we can distinguish the message a little bit easier. So I'm going to run the command again, and give it a moment to run. And again, it's completed successfully. It's given us a little bit of status. So I'm going to pop over to the inbox. I'm going to take a little look. Oh, I've refreshed the page inside the wrong one, but that's not a problem. I can now see my message. And as we can see, it's been sent from the Ethereum address that I registered here. So these are the same addresses. You see the identicon, we've got an idea what's going on. And of course, I can reply, forward, things like that. But let's stick back in the code because that's where we're going to be spending our day today. So that gives you an idea of how you can now send messages from an Ethereum address. Let's try sending a message to an Ethereum address. But bear with me, there's going to be a little bit of a twist in this one because we're going to do something slightly different. And this will give you an idea of things that you can do with Mailchain that are pretty helpful. So I'm actually now going to run the same command before. So I'm going to create myself another Ethereum account. But this time I'm actually going to do it. I'm going to add it to my wallet. So if I remember the process correctly, not quite. Import account, private key, import. I'm going to be diligent today, and I'm going to give it a name, so 02 workshop, probably Mailchain workshop. That sounds great. So I've got my account, my address here. Now I'm going to deviate from the previous step, what we were doing before. I'm not going to register inside Mailchain for the moment. Instead, I'm going to send a message to it directly. So we're going to pop over to here. I'm going to take out this. I'm going to add that in there, and I'm going to do the, spell this correctly, ethereum.mailchain.com. So I'm going to hit start. It's sending now from the Ethereum address I've registered to an Ethereum address I own, but I've not yet registered. And we're going to see what happens. So it's gone through successfully. If I head over to the UI, I refresh the page, and as you'd expect and imagine, there is no message inside of here. So instead, what we're going to do, we're going to register the new address that I created. So I'm going to pop it to MetaMask. It's nice, conveniently selected the new address for me, so I'm going to accept that, connect. Can now verify the address. And it's the very similar message. There will be a different messaging key. So each address that gets created, there are different messaging keys, so it keeps them all separate. And this is actually a really good opportunity to bring in, when you add messages, when you add register addresses with Mailchain, we have no way of knowing that you've done that action. So you have a single view where you can see all your mail and your addresses, but only you can see that. That is not something that we can see, and I think that's a really important part about the safety of using Web3. You want to be able to use your different identities, and we believe that people are going to have many, many identities, tens, maybe even hundreds of identities for the different things they do. But we also think that people, when they use these identities, they may want to use them together, but not reveal that they've done that. So the way that we've built the user interface and the different security layers that we have in place, it is not possible for anyone else, by looking at public information, or us by looking at our information, to understand that these accounts are added together. It is only you, by downloading the encrypted information, that you can ever see this. So again, you can look for an ENS name, which obviously I haven't got because I haven't created one here, so I'm going to skip that. Well, I should apply that actually. And this time I'm going to click the synchronize step. And the synchronize step is going to say, hey, actually, I've just registered an account, and I'd like to find out if there are any messages that were sent to this address before I registered. And here we are. So this is the message sent from my Ethereum address that I registered before to the new Ethereum address, and I've got the message inside of here. So this gives you a really kind of interesting way of being able to talk with users and communicate with them, even if they're not yet on Mailchain, but you can still kind of be able to get messages out to them, and as soon as they register, they're going to have all that information that they were expected to have received, and it'll give them a kind of a really nice sort of experience when they kind of log in. Thank you, Joey Z. Yes, hi guys, nice to meet you. Yeah, my address is there. If you want to ping me at Rob at Mailchain, that's the one that I use more frequently, but great to see you. Let me get back to you. Cool. Oh dear, it's on this. I've shrunk my screen so much I can't get to it. Here we go. Make a slight adjustment. Cool. It's a bit too big. Okay, so that's kind of the end of what I'm going to call step one. We've got a few more steps, but that gives you like the very basics of the functionality that you can imagine. So let's just press on, because we've got some really interesting stuff that we can do as well. There's a big hand up there that's kind of light. I'm going to see.
Turn it on for me.
Okay, good. Oh, I think it works now. Hello.
Hi.
Just a quick question about this. You can send a user messages before they actually signed up.
Mm-hmm.
Usually that causes problems with end-to-end encryption.
It does cause problems with end-to-end encryption. We have not found a way yet to be able to vend keys in a completely fully private way. So this is the only part of our system where we can't maintain the fully end-to-end encryption. So when you use this and you ask for a messaging key, so when you kind of say, behind the scenes what happens is, I want to send a message to this address here, it'll give you back a messaging key in all situations, and it will tell you whether the messaging key has been a key that has been signed up by the user or a key that has been provided by us. So then you as a developer can make a judgment call based on the type of information you're sending, whether, hey, it's relatively informational, I'm sending them an update, something like this, or I'm sending them something that is truly sensitive and private. So this is kind of this is the only compromise we've really had to make on our security posture. And I think this is going to get less and less over time, naturally, as more people start using the platform, or some people will find other ways to do it. And I think the type of encryption methodologies that are coming will make it easier, but it's a very good call out and a good spot. This is something that you should be aware of, and you'll see it inside the SDK when you query for a messaging key.
Okay. Did you consider the approach of just holding the messages in the outbox of the sender until there's a real secure encryption key available?
So that's a really, really interesting approach, and something that not considered in enough depth. So I'd really like to have a chat with you after about it. Like, off the top of my head, there's obviously some benefits and some, like anything, there's downsides and benefits to it. It'll work quite well inside our application where we have an inbox. If it's someone sending from a server side, then the developer needs to be maintaining that information and sending and when that person is finally online or that address has finally been registered. But it's definitely a really good way of looking at the problem as well. So yeah, I'd like, if you're around afterwards, it'd be nice to have a little chat.
Absolutely, I'd love to.
All right, thank you. Okay, cool. All right, so actually we're now going to kind of work on sending to ENS addresses. So I don't know how many people are following along, but if you want to take a moment just to kind of catch up, and if there's any other questions, I can kind of answer them while everyone's kind of getting themselves up to speed. Yes, there is a question over there. Nathan, can we transport the microphone?
Yeah, thanks. I'm curious, do I need to do this flow with setting up password and downloading the 12 words? Or I can just connect my existing address to Mailchain and see the inbox if I got any emails and just start using it without creating like a new account and a new mnemonic?
So can you say that again? I didn't quite catch the question fully.
Yeah, sure. So the first step we did was to set up the password and download the mnemonic phrase that we just did. And then the second step was to connect my existing, like some other accounts on MetaMask and see the inbox for those accounts. Mm-hmm. Do I have to do step one? Or I can just go ahead and connect my MetaMask and start using email right away?
So we have, I don't know where the influence is coming from. The way that we've kind of built it up, to utilize the inbox, you need a Mailchain account to be able to see everything inside of there. To send messages, to send onto the protocol, you do not need one. So if you wanted to, you can use the protocol to be able to communicate. It's just they wouldn't land inside the inbox. So we have kind of different layers inside the architecture that allows people more choice. So I fully expect that people will come along and build a much cooler, more exciting inbox, and they will use their own way of organizing the inbox, possibly our keychain, maybe not, but they would use the protocol to be able to do the communication. So we kind of have these different layers on top. So the examples we're going through at the moment use the inbox. It makes it much easier to show things. But as a developer, or as developers here, I imagine you're going to do some stuff that I'm going to be really excited about, and some stuff that I've never even thought about, and I'm going to be super excited about. So yeah, anyone that has any crazy ideas, I'd love to hear them afterwards as well. Cool. Any other questions for the moment, or we'll press on and I'll give you a chance to ask questions after the next stage, but I'm sure there'll be a few. All right, cool. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to work with what we've kind of called, there's different ways to express an address. We have the address as you see it here, and this comes directly from the public key. There's also other ways, more friendly names, whether they be ENS, Unstoppable, Free Name, Coinbase, and many others as well. Lens is another great example. So you can start messaging directly to these identities. And these identities, obviously, people have chosen to create these identities, and they tend to want to communicate in the context of their identities. That is really the key of what we're trying to build here, is contextual communication. So instead of sending a message directly to the address, you can send it to the identity, and that allows the user to organize their identities inside the inbox, send from their identities, and also potentially put rules around the type of messages they want to receive against those identities. So what we're going to do, we're going to extend what we had done in part one to send a message from an ENS name to a regular Ethereum address. Now, what I have set up earlier is a ENS name. Now, we're going to use, so I'm going to just kind of put my ENS name into here. So it is rob.epistola, there we go, .eth at mailchain .ens@mailchain.com. I'm just visually double checking I've spelt that right. And I'm going to say from my ENS. Okay. So what now is going to happen is I'm going to be able to use my ENS name to communicate, and someone's going to see me communicating to them in the context of ENS. And I can obviously, send to that address as well. So let's go run that as well. Now, I've used a subdomain here. I could have sent it from epistola.eth, but you can use subdomains, you can use name wrappers, you can use any of the other name services that we support, and these all kind of work out the box in exactly the same way. So again, there's some pretty interesting things you can do there on the way that you can create users' accounts using subdomains or name wrappers, and be able to have them available for the life of the account or the subscription that you've set up for them. So I'm going to head over again to the inbox. I'm going to check my messages. And I can see here, I've now got from epistola.eth. And if I was to reply, I can choose which one I want to reply to. And I've got that all available for me. So this, as you can imagine now, gives you like a whole new rich way of being able to communicate with users from different communities, in a secure way as well. In a secure way as always. We use these names to be able to help resolve addresses and resolve the messaging keys, but essentially the flow is exactly the same. And this, it's very much as easy as that. The SDK, when it comes to sending messages, I think the thing that developers are going to be spending the most time on is figuring out the content of those messages rather than the actual complexity of sending them. And that's what the SDK gives you and makes it available for you to be able to do. We've wrapped up, so just want you to kind of be aware as well, this SDK here that we're kind of using today is our very opinionated view of how you should send messages on Mailchain using the Mailchain inbox. So each of them parts of that sentence are quite important. And what that means is, the gentleman asked earlier about, do you need a Mailchain inbox? For this particular example, yes, because we're using the Mailchain account, because you're using the Mailchain inbox. However, you can access the other parts of the SDK to register keys, to be able to communicate on the protocol, to send messages, to send other types of messages as well. And so they're all available for you when you drill down into different levels. I think we're going to struggle to get through that in today's workshop, but again, if that's something interesting to you, I'll be around. I can spend as much of today and the rest of the week kind of explaining things and how they work. And we have lots of documentation to kind of guide you through too. So let's kind of take a look at the next example. And this is a pretty interesting one. So we already spoke about sending messages, kind of handcrafted messages, but I'm sure you're now thinking about, well, like, what are the other things that kind of make sense for me to be able to want to do? So I'm going to get rid of this. We don't need that anymore. I'm going to pop back to my terminal screen. We're going to clone a different repository. So I need to get to the right place. And for everyone that's kind of following along on your own, this is part 3. So here, I'm going to grab this. And what we're going to be doing here, we're going to be using Alchemy Notify. For those of you who aren't aware, Alchemy builds infrastructure that makes it a lot easier to communicate with Ethereum and other networks. We're going to be working with Ethereum again. But we'll kind of go through what this does. We're going to be creating a webhook that listens to events that happen on the blockchain and then respond to them with messages. So I'm going to just open up the repository that I just cloned in Visual Studio again. I'm going to just kind of remove a few of these things and get to where I need to be, so into the terminal window. And yeah, let's start installing things. Cool. So to do this, we need to spend a little bit of time inside of Alchemy. So let's pop over to there. I'm going to actually just navigate directly to the link. It's going to be much easier. So if you don't have an Alchemy account, you can set one up. They're free. We're going to be using the notify part. If you've headed to the dashboard directly, you'll be able to find it inside of here. So I'm going to just clean this one from what I did earlier routine. And we'll get everything set up. So first off, we need to have a few things up and running. So we need to have installed ngrok. And again, there's instructions in this page for how to install ngrok. You can see it all on their website. Once you've got it installed, you can just run the ngrok command. I'm going to run it on 8080 to make sure it's all running. When it's running, it'll give you a little bit of an idea of what's up. It's got a pretty helpful web interface, which you can click on, and I've opened it in the wrong browser, so that's not really good. Here. I'm going to just copy this. Great. This is useful if something isn't working as expected. I'm going to put it here just in case. So now once we've got that up and running, one important thing that we need from ngrok is actually the URL that it's listening on. It's going to expose to the world the port on your machine through this address. And Alchemy is going to talk to that port to be able to simulate the webhook coming through. So I'm going to create myself a webhook. Put it here. I'm going to create it on Ethereum. I'm going to create it on Go Early because we're going to be sending some ETH around, and it's a little bit more practical for this example. And I'm going to be just adding an extra path here. So webhook, path. Okay. And I only really care about my Ethereum address. So I'm going to add the Ethereum address, the one that let's add the one that we had the ENS name against. So I'm going to pop some Ethereum here, and I'm going to hit create webhook. Brilliant. So let's start kind of setting up the application. I'm going to be just showing you how to set up your get ignore, and this might feel like a little bit of overkill, but I feel like it's really, really important to make sure that you have a good get ignore in place, because you're going to be copying in your secret recovery phrase, and that's an important secret that GitHub does not want to be storing, or you don't want GitHub storing on your behalf. So I'm just going to create this. Now inside get ignore, there's a few files already, that's fine. I'm actually going to just grab a list that I'm going to copy and paste inside of here so we don't accidentally create something inside. So once that's been created, I'm going to now create a local M file. So touch dot env dot development dot local. Now that's being created. And, once again, I opened up a little folder before, so I'm just going to run get init inside this directory. That's fine. So that's sorted that out for me. You may not need to do that. I've opened up Visual Studio in a layer below, so it's a little bit confused on me. So that's fine. So I've now got my get-ignore. I'm just going to create a few variables that we need. So we're going to be running on port 8080. The host is going to be localhost. The signing key is going to be a nice random phrase. So I'm going to grab oh no, the signing phrase is not that. The signing phrase, signing key, sorry, is what comes from Alchemy. So just a quick tip. You'll see an ID here that looks very much like a signing key. That is not a signing key. Instead, you need to go to here, grab the signing key, and copy it. And once again, I've revealed a secret to everybody, but that's okay for today. I've taken that off later. And here, this is where I'm going to be adding my secret recovery phrase. I'm not going to add it directly here. Instead, I'm going to just cat it into there so that I'm not exposing it to everybody. So again, this particular command will achieve that for me. No, it'll put it in the wrong place, so that's fine. So I will try that again, but this time we'll put it to where we want to put it. Brilliant. Cool. So since we're now using .env, we need to tell our package manager that we want to use .env. So we'll get that set up and installed. Cool. So this project kind of comes with most of what we need already. And if we take a little look at source.tx, we'll be able to see everything here. So you can see it's setting some environment variables. It's getting everything in place as we need, which is all fine. We can leave and ignore most of that. What we do need to do, though, is we need to tell it to use .env. Okay, and that is fine. Yeah, and also, yeah. Okay, so now we're going to take a little look, and so I need to configure my .env just here. That's the bit that I was missing. .env.config. Oops. Sorry. And there's definitely better ways to do this, but for now we're only going to be using one environment, so I'm going to forcefully set it to .env.development.local. Cool. So what this code does, it kind of spins up a local express server. It's going to be listening on this port here, and once it's got a process an event, it's going to send things across. What we want to do is intercept this event and use it to send messages. So we can start this just to kind of see it running. And this will, well, you saw it, but we'll make sure it's running there. And you can see that this is running. To verify that it's kind of working end to end, always a good step to do at this moment, is we can fire a test event at it. So we can send a test notification. That test notification has been sent, and it's now received that it says it's processing, which is great. So let's see if we can make it do something a little bit more interesting for us. So what I'm going to do is inside our webhook, we've got it inside here. That's fine. I'm not going to use this sort.send. Instead, we're going to change things. We're going to go, if the webhook event is of type, doesn't equal type address identity. So it needs to be an address identity type, because that is the one that we're going to be handling for this activity. Then we're just going to return a response of, I think we'll do like a 400. Let's send. In fact, I'm going to put this on another line to make it more readable. Return res. Brilliant. That'll do the trick for that there. Okay. So now that we've got that in place, we can start paying attention to the activities that we are interested in. They can be sent in a list. So I'm just going to pop this to go through things, to go through what's there. Activity of webhook event dot activity. Wonderful. So in this for loop, we're going to just take a look to see, first of all, if it's not an external event, again, we're just going to ignore it. Activity.category doesn't equal external. Then I'm just going to continue that. So we'll skip over that one. But that's fine. So now I want to grab some information from the activity. So let's get some information out of it. We're going to get a from address, the to address. Yeah, I'll take the value as well. That's pretty good. How about an asset and a hash? To kind of grab everything. So now that I've got these, I can actually start kind of composing my message. I'm going to copy and paste something from the interest of time, because it's probably going to take me a while to kind of type this out. As I said, probably the longest bit we have is creating the content. So that's just creating a nicely formatted message for us. So now we've got our message. We've used the variables that came from the webhook, and we want to start sending it. So I'm going to stop this. I'm going to add the Mailchain SDK, get that installed, and we're going to head over to the index file again, and we need to import the SDK, of course. So I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'm just going to do an import here. So import Mailchain from Mailchain/SDK. So now we've got that available. We need to also configure it with our secret recovery phrase, like we have been doing before. I'm going to pop this down here. So const secret recovery phrase equals process. Great. Now we've got that in place. I'm going to instantiate the Mailchain client equals Mailchain.from secret recovery phrase. It could be undefined, so that will sort that out. So now we've got it all set up. We need to send ourselves send to the Ethereum address that had the transaction the message. So I'm going to just make sure I grab the response, what comes here. Const response equals await Mailchain send mail, and tidy that up a little bit. That's good. We're going to what I'm going to do is actually just send it from the account that's been registered here, just so we don't have to configure one other thing. So Mailchain.user. So if you ever want to get your main Mailchain account, you can use this to get the address, which I find pretty handy. So we're going to and we're going to send it to the address that we received from the webhook. Sorry. So we're going to go from address at, and in each of these cases it's going to be Ethereum, We do support, we are building support for other protocols, so you will start seeing new protocols soon. So if you're interested in that, please do get in touch afterwards, and you'll be able to do cross-protocol communication as well. That'll just come working out the box for you. Subject, I'm going to call mail subject, content, mail content. That seems pretty good to me. So the only thing it's complaining about is the asynchronous functions. So I'm just going to pop to the top, add async, and we should be relatively happy here. So now that looks quite good. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to log out the response. So if anything has gone wrong, we can see what's up. I'm now going to start up the server. And like, I'm feeling quite confident about this, so we're going to give it a go and see what happens. If not, I have a backup plan, so all is not lost. So I'm going to head over to the faucet. I'm going to grab myself some ETH on GoEarly. So I need to go get the address that I'm using for this. I'm going to pop that in here. I'm going to hit send me some ETH. Oh no, I don't have enough time. Okay. Tim, who's just put his hand up in the background, he's going to save me and he's going to send me a little bit of ETH so we can make this work. So we will know when that happens. There'll be a few seconds for it to pop up here. Are there any questions while we're waiting for this to happen? No conveniently timed questions from anybody. No problems. All right. So we'll just kind of wait a second there, and I will, while that's happening, talk you through cross-protocol communication, how that works, what that means. And as soon as this pops up, we'll interrupt and jump into it. So at the moment, we allow you to send from a Mailchain account or Mailchain network account to an Ethereum account. We support multiple different name services, so name providers over the top of Ethereum. We also are building out into NEAR, which we'll have imminently. We're working on other protocols as well. And the exciting thing for us is a user messaging from one protocol to another protocol will be exactly the same as them messaging within the same protocol. So they won't see or experience or feel any differences inside of that. So that's something that's going to be kind of like, I think, really, really powerful as well. Now, conveniently, we have our webhook. Oh, it looks like Tim's been pretty generous, and there's 2 transactions, which is great. And now we have a message that's been sent. It's processing another webhook. So there's activity, which is great news. So I'm going to refresh my page here and see what's going on. Ooh, there's activity. Where did we send it to? So, did I send it to the wrong place? Let's take another look. Oh no, the demo gods have got me. Let's have a look what's gone on here. So that's my GoEarly address, and I've got one address here, and it's that one. Let's have a look. I've sent it from the correct address, so that's the from address. Should it have been the to address? Do we think it should have been the to address, anyone? Let's have a look. No, it should be the from address. Do it the to address. Someone's saying do it the to address. Yep. You know what? Let's do it both, the from address and the to address. Oops. To address. There's a good helpful hint from the audience there. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to stop everything, start it all up again. This is a great way to get ETH from somebody, by the way. Just kind of like not have it work first time. So that hopefully is on its way to me again. And we'll just wait a few moments for it to appear. Aha, there it is. So now I've received the webhook. It is working on sending it. So come on. There we go. We've got the message that's been sent through. And now, hopefully, that we sent it to the correct address. We will see what's going on. I guess Tim in his inbox has got a few messages. Here we go. So I'm going to need to just adjust the size of this so it fits on the screen a bit. We now have our message. We've got some formatting. We can see some contextual information about the transaction that took place. So you can now start imagining, I can see a few nodding heads here, about how you can start using this to inform users. If you're create NFTs, you give them some sort of experience after purchase, after someone's made a transaction, after someone's done anything on the network, you can inform them and make that experience a lot richer. And where we have the end-to-end encryption, you can send them sensitive information. And that's actually what we're going to touch on quickly next. For this one, I'm actually just going to do a demo. I'm really conscious of time, and I want to make sure there's plenty of time for questions that people might have at the end. And you'll still be able to follow on with it afterwards as well. And there are other examples that you can take a look at. So we have another example here, and this is about passwordless authentication. I've clicked on something that I shouldn't have clicked on by the looks of it. So what passwordless authentication is like using something like Magic Link. And what Magic Link allows us or you to do, here we go, we get the right page, is to do passwordless authentication. So a user can click on a link and they can log themselves in. Now it's a really nice experience. The problem then comes is how do I give that user the passwordless link if I care about security? If you're not too fussed and they trust their email provider, some are more trustworthy than others, you could send it to their traditional email. However, there are many problems inside of that, and it's very, very difficult to fully secure traditional email. So with Mailchain, we do end-to-end encryption, and only you and the user can see that message when someone has registered. So you can send them a magic link to their address, and once they click on it, they'll be able to authenticate. And it's pretty straightforward. So we have inside our Mailchain sort of repository, we have an examples folder, and this gives a couple of examples. We've got a magic link, send API, and a few others that we're going to put in after today. So we're going to focus on the magic link example here. So do feel free to kind of take a look at this. It's a good one to start, and you'll keep up to date with the new examples and new code we put there. So I'm going to just close that one off. I'm going to see if I can remember where I put the example. And here it is, examples.js, and I go to magic link. And I'm just going to open that up inside of Visual Studio. So you can, like I said, you can clone this or you can produce it in exactly the same way. I'm just going to run a demo of it so we can kind of see it all happening. Now, what do I have running? This, I think we want to run npm for this. npm start sounds about right. Aha! So I don't have my secrets inside of here. That is fine. We're gonna do that. We've got the command for that. Let me just pop and see what I've got here. Yeah. So inside of here, you set up a secret password session key, and that is one of my favorite keys that I just generate with OpenSSH. So we'll put a different one in there for the time being. And now I'm going to add in my secret recovery phrase into there. I'm going to add it into the correct one, so .env, that is good. I'm now going to run npm start again to start things up. So what this has done is, so for those of you familiar with Express, probably familiar with Passport, Passport allows you to build authentication on top of your Express applications. And like Web2 authentication works well. JWTs are well proven, well tested. It's really about how you create those JWTs and how they're authenticated. And this is, I think, where we can add and we can show a really interesting use case. So now that we've got this up, I just need to find out what port this is running on. We can probably brute force our way into that. Let's have a look. Aha, there we go. To-dos. An application that I need so many of. But anyway. So to do the application, you just need to sign yourself in. And what is built here is the ability to be able to sign in with a Mailchain address. So what I can do is, actually, let's use the epistola, the ENS name that I had. So epistola.eth. So I'm going to sign in with my Mailchain account there. Oh dear, that didn't work. Let's try at ens.mailchain.com. Oh, what have I done? I know what I've done. Hold on a second. Rob's done something that he shouldn't have done. Let's pretend that didn't happen. So I'm just going to, I need to edit my M file, but because I've got something in there, I just need to remove it. So we're going to start again. So touch.env, one of the parameters that I was missing is the from address. So what we need to do is we need the it's the secret signing key. What is the name of it? Yeah. Secret underscore passport underscore session underscore key equals. Let's go create another one of these. These can be anything really. Well, at least in production they can be anything. And now I need a from underscore address, a bit that I was missing. I'm going to call this Rob. What is my account called? It is called Rob MC Workshop. Rob-MC-Workshop at. I should have asked you, Joey, what my name was. Com. Brilliant. So close that. And echo that into there. And now we're going to run npm start. I'm going to pop back over to here. And this time we don't need that. We can do it without it. We're going to run sign in. Okay, so let's take a little look. We can pop over to the terminal window to see what's happened. But basically it's saying, check your Mailchain inbox. There's not a lot of login we've got here on this case, but that doesn't matter. We're going to pop over to here. I may have a few more funds transfers messages. But the one I'm really interested in is a sign in to my to-dos app. So if I click the sign in button, I've got it. I'm here. Almost spelt it correctly. So now I've done that, I'm going to mark that off my to-dos. I'm pretty happy about it. And I'm going to go sign myself out as well, which is going to be quite difficult to tick this off once I sign myself out, but that doesn't matter. So if I click sign out, it will invalidate my session. And that uses Passport under the hood with Magic Link and Mailchain as the secure transport, which is often the missing link in that particular kind of equation there. The code is all available. I'm not going to talk through it now because I want to make sure I've got a chance to answer any questions or the questions that you all have. So let me kind of pop over here and see if anyone's got any questions. Come on, guys, you've been sitting watching stuff, coding along. I'm sure there's a few things that you're quite curious about. So we've got the microphone if anyone wants to know anything. No, lots of silence, and I think hopefully happy people. Tim, is there anything else we want to go through quickly? Well, we've got a few more minutes, I guess. All right. Okay. Well, look, there's many different examples, and let me just kind of point you towards the GitHub repository that we have, so you can see where you can grab the SDK code. You can see some of our documentation as well. But you are all super busy people. You have many things to do and a really big event, so I want to make sure that you get to experience as much of it as possible. So here's our developer documentation. Our GitHub is at Mailchain/GitHub. You will see our docs, our SDK, our examples, and a bunch of other stuff that hopefully is useful for you. We're on Discord. You can message Rob at Mailchain, Tim at Mailchain, Misha. We've got quite a few of the team around. Everyone raises their hands who's paying attention. So if you want to kind of ask us anything, please do. And happy event and happy building. Take care, everyone.